Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting for Tuesday, July 21st. It's currently 7 o'clock. Before we get started, the Village of Anmore would like to open our meeting by recognizing the many Indigenous peoples of our area, including the following First Nations with communities that are now located in the region that we know as Metro Vancouver. To be the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we'd like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many tutorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. I'll call the meeting to order. Could I get someone to move the agenda as circulated? Second. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We have public input. Public is to come forward and ask any questions regarding to business that's on the agenda. Agenda items only. 2-minute time limit applies to speakers. Anybody wishing to come forward and discuss anything on tonight's agenda? Nope. Okay. Move on to delegations. We have a delegation from Lena Aziz to present regarding Lower Fraser Valley Floodplains Coalition, a regional request. I'm just going to ask, did you want to come to public input, comment on anything at public input? Okay, I'm just going to, if we can just put you on hold, sorry. Please come up and state your name and address.
Zane Erickson, 2000 Ridge Mountain Drive. I just wanted to bring up something about the proposed changes to the...
Could you pull the mic up a little? Yeah. There you go. Perfect.
Just the changes to the zoning bylaw. And I'm just looking for more specificity in what's written, specifically regarding basements. And I found it a little bit vague where it was described that they're wanting to limit it to a partially exposed. I didn't see a definition of what partially exposed means. And I think by reading it that I find the intention that limiting the height to 2.75 meters from the basement floor to the main floor is what would be the guiding definition of partially exposed. And I'm just concerned that in Anmore, if we reduce basement ceiling heights to 8 feet with large spans, with the way that houses are designed in Anmore, we're going to have people with 7-foot ceiling heights in basements if you need to do large spans with floor trusses like we do so we can run all their ducts and whatnot through there. And so I'm just concerned that these changes that are being made are maybe academic more than real world examples happening in the village. And so I think something of that just needs to be looked at a little bit more.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other public comments before I move on? Sorry. We'll get back to our delegation now. Ms. Lena Aziz. Thank you. And thank you for your patience.
As I was saying, we're just giving us 5 minutes about, our website and a little bit, so you can learn a little bit about who we are. Sure.
And please, yeah, feel free to change that, move that. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Lena Aziz. I'm the Habitat Programs Director at Watershed Water Standard Society, a conservation charity based in Port Coquitlam. Our work goes where salmon goes. We work province-wide. Today, okay, is this all right? All right. Today I'm speaking as a member of the Lower Fraser Floodplains Coalition. The coalition is a group of organizations, experts, and advocates working toward integrated, fish-friendly, and climate-resilient floodplain management across the Lower Mainland. Our vision is simple, that the people and the non-human relatives of the Lower Mainland are healthy, safe, and resilient to flooding. I'm here with a request that the Village of Anmore join other communities in becoming a signatory to the Regional Joint Statement on Action for Floodplain Resilience in the Lower Mainland. Since 2022, we've been convening local governments and First Nation leaders and experts from across the region to build the relationships, the knowledge foundation, and momentum needed to ready our region for flood resilience. Over the 7 dialogues we've hosted, themes around coordinated action, regional action, sustained funding sources, and advocacy to the feds and the province keep coming to the surface. Those 7 meetings are represented by the 7 reports we have on this slide there. Something else that's emerged from the regional discussion is that it's time for multi-benefit flood management in the Lower Mainland. We are stuck with the approach to flood control infrastructure that was developed rather hastily in 1948-49, and that combined with provincial downloading of flood management to local governments leaves us confined to piecemeal approaches, but it doesn't have to be that way. Across the border in Washington state, there's a program called Floodplains by Design. The state of Washington has invested $359 million in large-scale multi-benefit projects that have reduced flood risk for 88 communities, restored over 275 kilometers of salmon habitat, supported local farms, and boosted regional economies since 2013. These investments have already saved nearly $2 billion in avoided flood damages. Beyond safety and habitat gains, the program is a powerful economic driver. Every $1 million invested generates 2.2 to 2.5 million in local economic activity, with about 80% of that money staying in the community. The program has leveraged funding from local and federal partners at a 3-to-1 ratio, creating thousands of jobs statewide. We have been learning from and being mentored through that program over the past few years, and we want to create an investment of that kind for the Lower Mainland. But despite all the goodwill demonstrated in the region and the good ideas that are out there, we have to acknowledge that we are in a crisis situation. Flood risks are escalating. In the Lower Mainland alone, we have lived through major flooding in 21, 24, 25, and a bit also this year in the spring of 2026. Aging infrastructure, development on floodplains, and a changing climate are all converging. I should note, of course, the BC flood strategy does exist. It's been around since 2024, but there's zero funding to actually implement that strategy. Flood resilience is not discretionary spending, it is prudent financial management. Every time we kick the can down the road, we are gambling with the lives, the homes, food security, infrastructure, and ecosystems in the Lower Mainland. In fact, a single major flood in the region could wipe out over $350 billion in economic value. The Close to Home report by the Canadian Climate Institute makes clear that BC will be the province hit hardest by escalating flood and wildfire-related disaster costs, and yet we continue to build in high-risk zones, locking in future losses. Of note, I just want to say there has been no significant federal or provincial investments in flood safety in our region since the Fraser River Flood Control Program ended in 1995. But opportunities do exist. The federal government has a clear interest in a resilient Lower Fraser, as mentioned in recent announcements. It's an opportunity to channel investments that deliver regional solutions that work with nature and the economy. It's worth noting also that the $150 to $164 million awarded through DMAF to the region has been scattered amongst individual projects, not a coordinated regional program, which unfortunately has not made our region flood resilient. A real investment program means sequencing the right tools in the right order, building local capacity, funding applied research, creating jobs, and prioritizing the most vulnerable communities first. Which all of that brings me to the joint statement that I'm here about today. The aim is to express a unified regional voice across local governments and First Nations and support advocacy to federal and provincial governments for stable, long-term investment in flood resilience that protects people, communities, and ecosystems from flood risk. And this is not just riverine, we're also talking about overland flooding and things like atmospheric rivers. It is an opportunity for the city, as for the village, as leaders, to send a clear message to Ottawa and Victoria, letting them know that we are ready to work together as a region to build flood resilience for our communities. We know what we need, and federal and provincial governments must step up to protect this region of national significance with a program that reflects the magnitude of the task at hand. To that end, we are calling, the joint statement calls for a dedicated long-term flood resilience program for the region, stable committed funding, not project-by-project funding, regional coordination, investment in critical infrastructure, and the full flood risk reduction toolbox, including nature-based solutions, and capacity support for First Nations and local government leadership to move this work forward. So on May 29th, the Metro Vancouver Regional Districts Board endorsed this joint statement, and since then we have been doing delegations to municipalities across the region. So far, we have got endorsement from Metro Vancouver and the SLRD, so Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. We are seeking endorsement from the FVRD later this month. City-wise, Port Coquitlam, the City of Coquitlam, City of Delta, Township of Langley, and the City of Langley have all signed on. We're in process with the City of Vancouver, Maple Ridge, and City of Surrey as we speak. And we have more coming up after the August break. So to summarize then, I should turn my sheet over. Essentially, this statement is calling on the provincial and federal governments to recognize that collaboration, not competition, for piecemeal funding is the foundation for resilience in the Lower Fraser, and that enabling First Nations and local governments to work together to meet responsibilities to their communities that flow from rights, titles, and jurisdiction is part of that foundation. And we're calling on the federal and provincial governments to develop a sustained long-term investment program for the Lower Fraser adequate to support collaborative work across federal, provincial, and local governments, First Nations, and the private sector to achieve regional floodplain resilience that works with nature, not against it. This work is bigger than one community, and hence we're trying to bring everyone together so we can work together. Thank you.
Good, thank you. With my role on Metro Vancouver, we did endorse this, and we've really had a challenge because the provincial government and federal governments are not putting any funding towards this very significant issue that is facing a lot of our municipalities. I especially feel for like a municipality like Pitt Meadows of fairly small size, just doesn't have the funding to be able to do this, and no money coming from the province or the federal governments to be able to do a lot of these things. And I know at Metro Vancouver, we also had the Fraser Valley floodplains task force that we have there, and we have a real challenge with it as well to maintain funding for that. So anyway, I really support what you're doing and getting, and us all advocating for the same thing and helping out. But it also, I think, includes dredging as well, because a lot of the areas of the Lower Fraser need to be dredged because they're now the siltation that's come down over the years, and the federal government, which is their responsibility, is not participating in that at all. So I'll just open up if anybody has any other further questions, but just wanted to thank you again for coming and for your presentation and the work that you're doing. Any other comments? Councillor Richardson.
So I went to your website to try and understand. Like, I understand it's a group of people coming together to try and raise awareness, but I didn't read any examples. This is what we like to do. And in your presentation, you even said, we're building on floodplains and putting people at risk. Where? How many? Which municipalities? Because it seems to me it would be the responsibility of the municipalities not to do that, not the provincial government or the federal government, to restrict municipalities from where they want to build. So I was a bit confused sort of how it would work, where the money would go, and what it would do.
Yeah, actually right now, I think it's Bill 44, Provincial Bill 44, where the province is kind of directing local governments in one way to build in order to densify communities, which in some communities they're considering more development and more dense development in the floodplains. Burnaby is one, Poco is another. So that's kind of what I mean by we're building more in the floodplain, and perhaps not to certain flood standards that have to be updated still, especially for the local communities having to update their flood standards. The second part of, what was the second part of your question?
I was kind of looking for specific examples of where the money would go, what it would do. Yeah. Like, are they looking to have the federal government come in, and your numbers were huge, raise all dikes on the Fraser Valley, 5 feet? Like, I was a bit confused, like even work with nature. Like, if you work with nature, the river just flows. Mm-hmm. So our point actually is, in some ways, is to not work with nature. We want to control it and force it into particular channels and paths. Mm-hmm. So
that's what's happened before, yeah.
So I didn't quite understand what the overall goal is.
Yeah, well, there are many different steps before we actually start breaking ground and, doing any of the flood resilience projects we'd like to see happen. Right now, we have funding from NRCan, Natural Resources Canada, to do research on critical infrastructure. So we're starting to identify where are the critical linear infrastructure at the moment. So railways, roads, focusing on those, their flood risk, weaknesses. So that study is currently being conducted through UBC School of Engineering. And we would love to have more communities on board and participating in that study so that their critical infrastructure in their communities are getting studied and addressed. So that's one thing that's happening. There is more need. There is further need for actually doing more applied research because we actually don't know where all of the high-risk flood areas are in the Lower Mainland. It shifts. Right now, everyone's focusing on the Sumas Prairie for obviously good reasons. But this past March, we had a slide at the top end of the Coquitlam River. Well, that's an area perhaps of high risk as well. So there are so many different areas of high risk within our communities that we haven't fully identified yet. So that has to be done. We talk about using the flood risk toolkit, and that is everything from gray infrastructure like dikes, pump stations, channeling things, all the way to green-gray solutions like greener dikes, using berms, for example, or creating constructed wetlands. So those are more nature-based solutions, constructed wetlands, to hold more water and allow it to flow more slowly, because as we are developing and have developed in our floodplains and our slopes, we have taken away the capacity of forests and wetlands to do what they need to do. We have lost 82% or so of the wetlands in the Lower Mainland. So therefore, we've lost the capacity to hold water in the region. So yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of wrap this up. Basically, in essence, you're an advocacy group for all the municipalities and different bands up along the Fraser River, which is something that you're looking to coordinate a kind of a central request to both levels of government and work as a unit, rather than what happens right now, which is a lot of the municipalities, i.e. the Richmonds, and that have their own flood plans, but they're not in conjunction with other neighboring municipalities like Delta and such like that. So really, I think the essence of the ask is just to sign on with the other municipalities as to this regional body, kind of speaking for all of us and getting the required funding that we need to get from the senior levels of government. Is that?
Yeah, we do advocacy. We also do convening. We bring local governments and First Nation leadership together. We do this at the regional scale, so Hope to the Salish Sea up to, the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. But we also do this sub-regionally at smaller groups, so we can talk about things at different levels based on what's needed.
Good.
So we do the advocacy. We do the convening, bringing together people, and we're creating a knowledge hub. We're creating the shared knowledge space for communities to access. So we are not the ones who would, in essence, we should not be the ones we're not leadership, right? We're kind of behind the scenes, but we want to support and encourage leadership to have the words and the knowledge to, again, go forward and speak to the province and the feds and bring this investment to the region.
Good, thank you. Ms. Hessen, do you have a resolution for us or something we can move to endorse?
Perhaps if council desires, a resolution can be that the council supports the request of the delegation, something as simple as that, perhaps.
Would that be, so the Village of Anmore Council support the movement of the, I forget what exactly the name is.
The joint statement.
The Lower Fraser Floodplains Coalition.
Yeah. The exact name of the statement is, I believe you have it as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, and if you wanted to see the wording, it is on my slide deck as well.
We'll wordsmith. So I'll call the question then. Do I have someone to move that resolution to endorse the floodplains? Okay, Councillor Cryer.
So are we requesting to send a letter of support, or?
I d- Is it a
Like,
letter?
what is the actual action, is what I'm a little confused
So
about.
what we've been receiving from other local governments is a very brief letter showing reflecting support for the joint statement, as well as a logo that we can then put up on our presentation and on our website. So that's the basic ask.
Okay,
And then, of course, moving forward, if there's interest in being part of our convenings and being part of any advocacy that does happen at the high upper levels of government, being invited to participate in that as well.
okay. So could I get does somebody want to move that motion to submit a letter? Moved. Anybody want to second it? I see Paul's going to second it. Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, as I kind of mentioned earlier, like I couldn't really understand who you were, how you were funded. You said you were a nonprofit, and I didn't quite understand your role. And in order to send a letter saying I support you, I kind of have to know more.
Okay.
So I can try and find that offline, but
Yeah.
I couldn't find it before. So maybe we can have a conversation or something.
I'm happy to chat, but very quickly, we are really just like a bunch of different organizations who think the region needs to be organized in a better way. We don't have a regional flood plan, and we're at risk because of that on many different levels. Environmentally, but also economically, our community is at risk. So for all of those reasons, a number of organizations came together. If you go to our website, you will see who we are on there. We're like researchers, engineers, environmental organizations, legal, like West Coast Environmental Law, so they provide legal advice. We also have Farmland Advantage, so we have like a agricultural members part of our coalition. So
One more question
Yes.
from Councillor Cryer.
Are you a registered, well, you're not a charity, but are you an organization, a society?
We're a coalition. So we're a coalition of different organizations who are, like Watershed Watch, who I work for, is a registered charity. The First Nations-led Emergency Planning Secretariat is a, what are they? They're a nonprofit, they're not a registered charity, but they're First Nations-led, and our work is very much based in and supported by what they do. So all of the different organizations that are in the coalition, we have our own charters and mandates and all of that, but we come together for this cause and try to bring the region together.
Okay. I
We're
think
just
that's.
a coalition.
So you don't have do you have a budget? Is everyone paid by their organization that represents? Sorry for these questions, but.
No, totally, it's fine. So I can speak for myself. I do have a budget that pays for my time that I apply for grants, to foundations, and that's at Watershed Watch Salmon Society. But the coalition, to help with some of our studies, I mentioned NRCan. We have $1.8 million from NRCan. We recently were awarded some money through the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture, because they want us to continue our engagement between farmers and First Nations in the valley. So that's some other work that we're doing. So, little pots of money here and there.
Perfect. Thank you.
To help us do our work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? I don't even see. Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming out and presenting. Okay, we have the minutes of the regular council meeting held on July 7th, 2026. The recommendation that those minutes be adopted as circulated. Could I get someone to move that? Move. Second. Any discussion on those minutes? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes? No? Okay. We have a consent agenda. We only have one item on the consent agenda, the Orphan Dyke Advocacy Letter to the province. Who should I go to about explaining this? Ms. Elra?
It is just for a receipt.
Oh, it's just for receipt? Okay. Someone to move receipt. Move. Second. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. We're on to Legislative reports, 9A, OCP bylaw amendment 722-2025, infill development, first and second reading. Report dated July 17, 2026, from Manager of Development Services attached. Mr. Joseph.
Excuse me, before we begin, I will recuse myself.
Okay.
We'll be doing infill hopefully in the future.
Mr. Joseph.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council.
If you can put the mic a little closer.
So this report is to present an updated draft of the official community plan amendment bylaw number 722-2025, which proposes updates to OCP policy RLU 16, along with corresponding amendments to the infill policy number 61 for Council's consideration of first and second reading, and to seek direction on referring this amendment to external agencies as required under Section 475 and 476 of the Local Government Act. So back at the May 20th, 2025 meeting, Council directed staff to propose amendments to OCP policy RLU 16. Staff returned in September 2026 with proposed amendments, and Council passed a resolution directing staff to prepare changes to both the infill policy as well RLU 16 and the infill policy. At the May 19th meeting, Council directed that the amendments be deferred, as it was identified that the proposed new minimum lot size provision for double fronting parcels would permit a density greater than that what was allowed under the most recent OCP updates. So staff have further revised the draft amendment bylaw and infill policy number 61 for council consideration based on this feedback, and have since removed the density specific provision for double fronting parcels altogether. The previous inclusion for parcels between 2,800 and 3,924 square meters to be eligible for infill, where the parcel double fronts onto two separate public highways, would have equated to a density of around 8.67 units per acre, which exceeds the OCP policy RLU 17 associated with recent OCP amendments that has established a maximum density of 6 units per acre for infill lots. So the standard minimum lot size range of roughly 1 to 2 acres and the current maximum density of 2.04 parcels per acre will continue to apply to all infill parcels, including those for double frontage. So staff recommend that any further review of infill density be considered as part of a future OCP update. The amendment also proposes to remove number 3 of RLU 16 for the requirement that the entire parcel have an average slope of 20% or less, while keeping a number 4 of the policy for the requirement that the building site have an average grade of 20% or less. This gives more flexibility for lots with varied topography while maintaining control of the siting that keeps the development off steep slopes. It's also worth noting that the steep slopes development permit area adopted to the recent OCP amendments still applies to lots with an overall average grade of 20% and will require a development permit and geotechnical assessments where needed. The amendment also provides additional flexibility on frontage requirements described in RLU 16, number 6. So panhandle lots and lots using an access easement are treated as comparable scenarios, both requiring similar standards for emergency access. The previous draft amendment had a 50-meter frontage requirement for panhandle lots, and this has since been revised down to 25 meters, matching what's proposed for the lots utilizing an access easement alternative. In regards to updates to infill policy number 61, Section 2 requires that the access strip of a panhandle not be included in the calculation of the minimum lot size. Section 4 of the policy exempts panhandle lots and lots utilizing access easements from a 25-meter frontage requirement, but requires that the parcel width and depth be at least 25 meters in length to maintain green space between homes, as illustrated in figure 3 and 4 of the policy as attached to the report, matching the intent of the 25-meter road frontage requirement. Staff have also consulted with Assessment Volunteer Fire Department on emergency access requirements for these lot configurations, which have informed Section 5 of the infill policy number 61, which requires panhandle lots and lots using an access easement to meet a set of criteria that will be enforced through covenants on title. These include a minimum of 7.5 meter access strip for panhandle lots, a minimum 6 meter wide paved access for panhandle lots and access alternatives to use existing driveways where feasible, maximum of 12% driveway grades or access grades, adequate overhead clearance for fire apparatus where an arborist report and tree management plan may be required at rezoning, clear and visible address signage from the highway, safe and accessible emergency entry at all times, and only one parcel that may be created utilizing an access by easement. So a council approval of a waiver permitting subdivision where the frontage is less than 10% of the parcel parameter will be required when warranted for these lots. and also referral to the fire chief may occur at any stage in the info process. Finally, amendments to Section 8 of the policy proposes to update the list of desirable community amenities. Since the community hub is now complete and upgrades to Spirit Park are underway, staff have replaced the municipal hall with park enhancements and park acquisition as an active CIC priority. Staff has not proposed a change to the actual CAC target value at this time, though council may direct staff to commission a new land lift study or adjusting the current figure based on CPI indexing as recommended by the previous report, which would bring it to approximately $189,633. So if council wants to pursue this, either two options, direction can be given tonight along with the other recommendations. Local Government Act requires a consultation with potentially affected agencies before public hearing, so staff recommend referral to the municipalities of Belcarra, Port Moody, School District number 43, and the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam First Nations, with all responses brought back to council as part of a public hearing package. Would you like me to read the recommendation?
Sure.
So the recommendation is that Village of Anmore Official Community Plan Bylaw Amendment number 722-2025 be given first and second reading, and that Anmore Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 722-2025 be referred to the following committees as it relates to the mandate of each committee, and that in relation to the Village of Anmore Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 722-2025, amendments associated with the proposed updates to policy RLU 16, info development, council will provide the following additional opportunities it considers appropriate for consultation with persons, organizations, or authorities it considers will be affected, including the municipalities of Village of Belcarra and the City of Port Moody, School District number 43, and the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam First Nations, and that all information resulting from the Section 475 and 476 referral and received by the village will be brought forward to a council as part of a public hearing package, and that a public hearing be scheduled following the referral process. Thank you.
Good. Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded, seconded. I'll open up for discussion. Councilor Richardson.
Okay, so when I read through this, we just did an OCP amendment. We're now doing another one, and I'm worried we're bumping into an election and maybe it's not the right thing to do. So if you could just kind of qualify times. If this is passed, when would the public hearing be?
I think the next council meeting is in September, I think in the 20-something, 22nd. Should be a sufficient time for a referral process to take place, as well as to schedule a public hearing. So that would be probably when the public hearing would take place.
Okay, and then after that, it would be third reading.
At the same meeting, potentially
But
third
then you have
reading.
to do a fourth reading,
Correct, October.
which would,
Or, oh, they're going to adopt because of its OCP. So you could potentially do the adoption at third reading as well. So the September meeting.
third and fourth. Okay, because it's banging into the election and I'm, for some reason, I'm a bit leery on it. With that said, I'm good with like the panhandles. I'm good on the 20%, for the building area only. I'm good on the size of the double roaded lots. I'm struggling with the manifestations or maneuvering to allow the 0.89 or the 8.9 versus the 6 in the OCP. And I was wondering if that cannot be done or done better in zoning. So like right now we say all lots 1/3 of an acre can have a carriage house, a suite, and a building. But we could change that if you're a double side infill, you don't get that. And then it cleans it up a little bit and this becomes more about enabling and less about massaging the OCP. And I don't know if that's possible or not, but I'm leaning more that direction.
Yeah, so through the chair, I think that you're running up against one other issue, and that's the 2.04 lots per acre. So that, I guess for the double frontage purposes, you could have 2 lots there, but we've since removed that section for the RLU 16 policy under previous direction because it just exceeds the current density of the OCP. So you could potentially include an additional zoning bylaw or a zone for specific lots where you wouldn't allow for, let's say, all 3 of the units per lot. So then maybe if it's 2, then you would still be in line with the OCP. that was currently passed.
Because that's my concern. How much of this is to enable more flexible infill? And how much is this is to change the current OCP to allow the potential extra density on like a 0.8 acre lot that's divided into with 3 units on each side?
Yeah, so through the chair, for tonight, the current bylaw that's in front of you for consideration does not consider additional density at all. That's since been striked out since the last meeting. So the double frontage lot is not under consideration at this time.
Okay, so then I'm confused because I read a bunch of this stuff is about adjusting the 0.6, the 6 units per acre density in the OCP to allow something more. Did I misread that?
Yeah, no, through the chair, it was just a clarification
Okay.
segment. Yeah.
Okay, and then my last question is it an issue at all? Like, say we boot it down the path to the next council, are there like 10 people lined up that say, I want this today? Do we have anybody, or can it be left until, like, we're gonna redo the OCP in the next term, is my understanding? So can it be, wait till then?
Yeah, I mean, we have had active interests, numerous active interests in sort of these type of configurations. We do have one active application in regards to 20% average slope. However, you know, those considerations, they still have to conform to the active policy, and of course, the option to defer it to an OCP update is always a possibility.
Okay.
Couple of questions I have for you. You know, again, when I struck the task force back in 2018, I've done infill. That's why I'm no longer recusing myself. I'm beyond that. You know, infill was to provide gentle densification, no new infrastructure, not on a steep slope, and it was to retain the semi-rural feel of the village. Very, very specific. And I think the councillors Weberink and Trollbridge actually did a really good job as they set up a group and met several times and discussed this. I've had a couple people who couldn't be here tonight but are pretty concerned about these new changes, and the one being the panhandle. They said, are you aware that most of the panhandles are strata roads? And so what you're doing is you're literally putting a neighbor against other neighbors on the strata road to allow them access to that panhandle. Number two is, will this also allow lots that are very deep, allow them to put a panhandle in to be able to develop the rear of their property, which again is going to take away from the semi-rural feel that the initial infill was proposed to do. So I am not in favor of this at all, because I think it opens up Pandora's box and to creativity that could be had with people putting panhandles in. And I know, I think it was in the mid 2015, 2016, we actually had a moratorium about adding panhandles, and I think this will actually add panhandles. So I do have some concern. People are not pleased about this, about the access, about the ability of using panhandles to facilitate their frontage, because they're using the panhandles to access their property right now and their strata. And so there's a big legal concern about that I don't know has been taken into consideration in this aspect.
Well, maybe I'll just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and then furthermore, you know, when we did the initial, I think there was a lot of parameters that were established out of, i.e. the Ravenswood neighborhood with the 25 meters and that. And again, we're starting to get away from that. The slope aspect, I think, is, you know, I have no issue from going a little bit higher to a higher percentage on the grade if it's not going to add any extra, and it meets the driveway requirements regarding grade and stuff like that. But the panhandle, I don't think should be an option used in infill at all. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to address a couple of things. So the panhandle, I was for the panhandles would essentially just be that property's driveway. So there's no strata because there's no sharing on it. It's just for that specific real estate entity using that panhandle as part of one singular parcel, just like any other parcel would use their driveway.
The concern when I read this, and the concern that people brought up to my attention, is where there's a panhandle that is shared by 2 or 3 homes, that is a strata road, and it's owned by each one of the owners. And therefore, you're putting owner against owner to be able to allow him to add another title to that, another access point to that, where it's only to facilitate currently the 3 homes or 2 homes or whatever it is right now. So there was some big concerns about that.
Yeah, so I know there is an option to have sort of a shared interest in sometimes an access easement. That's a specific sort of, I would say, access alternative that could be sought through a subdivision. However, as it's proposed, it's just for the singular access for the current parcel under the application.
So people could then create their own panhandle if they had their own property to be able to access the rear of their property.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess easements between property owners can be established at any rate. Yeah.
Okay. I saw Councillor Weberink had his hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. I have to agree with Mayor McEwen and Councillor Richardson. I think this is all a little too close to the election. This could all get turned around after the election. So I would not be in favor of moving forward with this at the time.
Okay. Okay. Did I see Councillor Trowbridge? Do you have your hand up or are you just adjusting your, go ahead.
No, sorry. It was my hand up. I'm of the same mind. I mean, I like everything, I'm comfortable with everything, I should say, in terms of the slope applying to just the building envelope, things like that make a lot of sense. But if it's all packaged together with panhandles, et cetera, I prefer to defer it.
Good. Okay, so we have a motion on the table that's moved and seconded. So to defer would just simply be to we vote against it. So all those in favor of, oh, sorry, Councillor Richard, you have one more comment?
One comment and one suggestion. So my read of this is existing panhandle lots are not considered in this. Is that true? Like if you have a lot that's narrower than 50 meters, you could potentially put something behind your thing and create an access that would look like a panhandle, but current panhandle lots, like the rear part of any lot that has a panhandle currently, this does not apply to, correct?
Yeah, so as the bylaw is currently worded, 50-meter frontage is a requirement to be eligible for infill.
Okay.
So that, unless the panhandle is 50-meter wide, which I doubt.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. So then, you know, I would make the amendment that be given first, second reading, and Anmore official be referred to the following as, no, not the committees, that it be amended so that the only thing considered is the 20% on building area. And then all the other stuff gets passed down the pipe. Because my understanding in talking with one person that has the 20% issue, like 20.05 or something, that the lot's a bit of a V, and they're not planning to build on the V, which is a creek, but that, if you add up the slope, the absolute value makes a very steep lot, even though the lot's not that steep. So, you know, mathematically how it goes. So I don't know if we can do that and just limit it to the one thing.
So right now we have a motion on the table that encompasses everything. We could do an amendment which would take it down to, but we'd have to vote those other ones down.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
So I think it's best that we just simply vote it down currently, or if that's what the appetite of council is, and then we could come back with another one, which is just, and describe a little bit more, because I'd like to get a little bit more details on the grade and why it was actually even initially set up as well at 20%, or where that number kind of came from. I think it was kind of arbitrarily kind of taken out of there in one of our GSL maps. And that, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of what's on voting this in favor right now? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Okay, so we'll come back with something then. Okay. Move on to, we're now on to 9B, zoning amendment bylaw, classification of basement exemption.
Just point of order here.
Yeah.
So if we defeated option 1, how do we get option 2 onto the table?
We defeated all of that, and I said to Mr. Joseph to bring back the height requirement if possible, and then we can talk about that. Go ahead, Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think that would be challenging to also be bringing back additional information, given that there's only 2 meetings until the end of the council term. There's a meeting on September 22nd and then another one in October. We could certainly report back in the September meeting, but then to schedule a public hearing and bring it forward to adoption would be very challenging in that timeframe.
To change that threshold, the percentage or the grade percentage, is that a full OCP review?
To the chair, no, I mean, it's been considered and reviewed, which is
Right.
part of this package.
Yeah.
However, essentially, it would just be to strike out number 3 of RLU 16 from the bylaw. That's where the bylaw would read.
But as I said, I would like to understand where that came from and the
The history.
ramifications of that as well.
Yeah, so 20% is the sort of the number that was chosen for steep slopes generally. I don't have the exact history, but I imagine that sort of through discussions, probably, with the village, that they decided that infill shouldn't be on steep slopes, and if steep slopes equals 20%, then the average 20% applies to all.
So, Ms. Howick or Essen, that minor adjustment to go from 20 to say 25%, could that be done over 2 meetings?
Is a public hearing.
It's a fairly small change in
Yeah,
regards to it, and we're not changing the intent of the bylaw. We're not changing very much of it.
It still would be, through the chair, it still would be a bylaw amendment.
Right.
So that could be done in 2 meetings. Being the first meeting would be September 22nd. Your second meeting in October, I want to say 7-ish. However, that would also be the public hearing night, and there would not be time for referrals to any other municipalities, school district, First Nations, or any committees. If that's council's desire to just do that bylaw amendment, that could be technically achievable in 2 meetings.
I just wanted to, by increasing the threshold, doesn't necessarily sort of address what we're doing, the intent of it. The intent is where there is a building site that is less than 20%, that we're not holding it up because 10% is drastically steep and now has contributed to the overall average density. That could be 25, or that could be 30 or 40. But what's on the ground is, the intent is to just allow for the areas that are completely not in steep sloped areas to be developed under development permit guidelines.
So I think it's best, my personal view is that we would just leave this as be, because again, we have a discussion, it's been an ongoing discussion about basement heights, which are all about slope as well, which are coming up with the next item at this point in time, so.
Yeah, well, through the chair, I don't know if they're completely related, because, the development on 30%, 40% is.
Yeah, it's dealing with slope development, so.
Yeah, I understand, it's just not an OCP issue.
Yeah.
Hello?
Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, so I don't quite, maybe don't understand, but I don't see the relationship to a slope discussion. My understanding is that removal of 16 RUL or RLU was to allow, if a property had a steep slope on it, but it was not in the building envelope, then we would allow the build in the building envelope. It's really more about where the slope is, isn't it, Josh?
Through the chair, that's correct, yeah. So.
Yeah, so I would be fine with an amended motion going forward with that component without the rest, which is, I think, what Councillor Richardson suggested.
So we
Because
voted,
it's not,
procedurally, we voted down the motion that was on the table, which included everything which Mr. Joseph put on the thing. So it would have to be a no motion forward, that if somebody wants to put it forward, that we would entertain.
I'll put that motion forward that we entertain the one segment.
I'd second that.
What is the motion that you're seconding?
My understanding, the motion is, which we're going to get from our corporate officer in a very exacting and precise way very shortly, is that on lots where the average gradient may be more than 20%, if there is a building area less than 20%, that would be allowed in infill. And the reason I would support that is, like, here's 2 examples. You have a lot It's an acre, half of it's dead flat, half of it's at 40%, okay? That would not be allowed. Half of it's dead flat, the other half is at 30%, that would be allowed. And I really don't see the difference between those two lots other than the steepness of the embankment down to the creek or whatever it happens to be. So I'm all in favor of, if you have a building area that's suitable, you get to build.
Okay, so do we have a motion on?
So through the chair, I can read out a motion. So I suppose, where's the original? So the recommendation is that the Village of Anmore Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 722-2025, as amended.
No, it's not amended. We didn't amend, that motion was voted down. So this is a new motion.
No, but if we're going to amend what's on currently. Well, we could.
I don't either.
Can't we just take the one section and put it as a motion?
I need, Councillor Richardson, through the chair, if you could please give me a complete sentence, that would be very helpful. Okay. Yep.
Your mic's not on.
Back to the beginning, I don't know the exact wording, but that the existing bylaw or the policy 61 be amended so that that you're allowed to do infill on lots where a building area is available less than 20%. Is that sentence enough? I don't know. Because this will drive to the public hearing, right? If we give it first and second, public hearing is next. So it should be pretty clear what we're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay, do you want me to try something? Do you want me to try something here that hopefully captures it? So the motion would read that where a building site is equal or less than the 20% slope, infill properties would be accepted under our current policy.
Perfect.
So through the chair, in just chatting with Mr. Joseph here, we could potentially amend 722-2025 that is included in the agenda package in a way that we could give it 2 readings this evening, if Ms. Kuzakara is all right with that. Mr. Joseph has the sections of that bylaw, which is on page 25 and 26 of your agenda, that could be amended, given 2 readings, and then we could move forward that way this evening and go to public hearing in September.
So just to clarify, updating the sentence on the item 3 on page 25, is that what I'm looking at? Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Okay. We can potentially say that the bylaw section 2, item 3 be amended, and then whatever the amendment needs to be, that we can add the amendment and go forward with that.
So
Councillor Richardson.
But if I read 722-2025, it actually be able to identify building sites that are equal to less than 20% slope. It's actually already in there. It doesn't have to be amended.
We would need to amend to delete the parts of the bylaw that you do not wish to include. So if you will indulge for a moment, Mr. Joseph can read that out for council.
Perfect. It was a hot day out there today.
This doesn't talk about panhandles.
Thank you all for your patience.
Yeah, that's all right. So I'll just start from here. We don't need to do anything with it. Okay, so the amendments would be to number 2 of the bylaw. That the Village of Anmore Official Community Plan Designation Bylaw number 532, 2014 be amended under Chapter 4, Land Use as follows. So delete policy RLU 16 in its entirety and replace it with the following. And I'll just read out the sections. So policy RLU 16, and this is what is already currently written for this intro paragraph. The village supports infill development and subsequent creation of new residences that maintain the existing semi-rural nature of Anmore. Infill development is the creation of new parcels within the existing developed area of the village of Anmore that are serviced by existing infrastructure. The intent of infill development is that it will enhance and not take away from the look and feel of the neighborhood. It is expected that any new infill homes will blend into the existing neighborhood, minimize the disturbance to natural environment, and will adhere to the same setbacks as the existing neighborhood. Infill development should be guided by infill development policy that outlines the specific requirements that the community expects from infill development to ensure that it meets the intent of this policy. The maximum density allowed for infill development is 2.04 parcels per acre. Parcels that are eligible for consideration under this policy must not have been created through a previous comprehensive development plan, be between 3,925 square meters and 8,094 square meters in area, be able to identify building site that are equal to or greater than 20% slope, not require the expansion or expansion of any village road or water infrastructure, and have at least 50 meters of frontage on a public highway, and have been in existence for at least 5 years as of the date of the application.
Yes. So for those people listening, we're striking off the back half of item 5.
Correct.
Okay,
I move it.
move it. Could I get someone to second it?
Second.
Second, open up for discussion. Any discussion? See none? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay.
And then,
we'll
sorry,
now-
through the chair, I'll just read out the rest of the recommendations for the referrals that are required, as well as public hearing.
Oh, what's now required for a public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, because, yeah, it was the package. So following that, and that Anmore Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 722, 2025 be referred to the following committees as it relates to the mandate of each committee. And that in relation to the Village of Anmore Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 722, 2025, amendments associated with the proposed updates to policy RLU 16, infill development, council will provide the following additional opportunities it considers appropriate for consultation with persons, organizations, or authorities it considers will be affected, including the municipalities of the Village of Belcarra and the City of Port Moody, School District number 43, Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam First Nations, and that a public hearing be scheduled following the referral process.
Do we need to move that? And okay, got someone to move that? Second? All those, call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Do we have more to add?
Did you want to add any committees for?
No.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay, so can we move on to 9B? Are we good? Are we good? Oh, right.
Oh.
You can get. Okay, we're now on to 9B, zoning amendment bylaw classification on basement exemption, a report dated July 17th, 2020 from Manager Development Services attached. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to present bylaw number 745, 2026, a zoning amendment bylaw that clarifies how the basement exemption applies under section 5.25 of the zoning bylaw, along with the related housekeeping correction to section 5.6. So at the May 5th regular council meeting, staff brought forward proposed amendments to the section 5.25, the basement exemption provision. Council deferred that discussion and asked staff to come back with visual impact modeling to see what the current regulations allow in terms of building massing. Staff returned on the June 12th with a report that included visual representations of what's permitted under the existing rule and identified the specific sections proposed to be clarified. At that meeting, council passed a motion directing staff to initiate amendments to section 5.25 and section 5.6. Additional sections are being proposed to provide greater clarity in relation to the basement exemption. So the current formula in section 5.25 from letters A through D that determines how much basement floor area is exempt from the floor area ratio calculation will remain the same. What the amendment does is add 3 new sections, E, F, and G, that address how the exemption applies across the building, because the current wording may incentivize numerous exposed basement floors that would be eligible for 100% basement exemption, which would increase the apparent massing of the building. There is currently no limit on how many stories in a single building can qualify for the full basement exemption. So on slope lots, final finished grade and building design can produce 2 or more stories that each meet the definition of basement, some of them partially exposed, which can make a building look like it's 4 to 6 stories tall from the street level. Subsection E fixes this by limiting the exemption to no more than 1 uppermost basement story per building. Sub-basement stories below that would still be permitted, but they would count towards the lot's maximum floor area ratio, like any other floor area. The second consideration is height of a story. As currently worded, there's no cap on the floor-to-floor height that the exempt story would apply to, which means a single basement story could be built well beyond the typical story height and still only count as 1 story for the purposes of subsection E. So subsection F caps the exempt story at 3.66 meters, which is 1/3 of our 11 meter maximum building height, essentially the height of 1 story within a standard 3-story envelope. However, staff have also included subsection G. It provides a full 100% exemption for stories below the exempt basement story, but only where that story is completely buried, entirely below finished grade at every point around the building's perimeter. Staff recognize that the story with no exterior exposure at all doesn't contribute to the apparent massing of the building, so staff have included the section to differentiate between the partially exposed stories. Finally, staff are proposing a housekeeping amendment to section 5.6.1, which clarifies how building height is measured so that it's based on a lower of the average natural grade or average finished grade. Right now, that section doesn't quite line up with section 5.5.2, which already uses that standard, and this brings the 2 into alignment, and it also reflects the current staff practice. So the recommendation is that council give first and second reading to Anmore zoning amendment bylaw number 745, 2026, related to section 5.25 basement exemption and section 5.6 building and structure height, and that a public hearing be scheduled for bylaw 745, 2026. Thank you.
Could I get someone to move that? Move, second, open up for discussion. Anybody? Yeah, okay, I have a couple questions then. So I can't support this if it doesn't at least offer a 9-foot ceiling height for the basement. I don't have a problem with basements going deeper than that, but I just wanted to clarify because this is kind of complicated. I saw in here there was a calculation of 2.75 meters for the basement floor, but most basements that I'm going into right now are a minimum 9-foot finished. And I can't do an 8-foot finish because again, we're also supposed to be promoting suites in these buildings as well. So can you confirm what the finished height would be, or presume you could give me the rough height as well? It would have to be about 10 feet then.
Yeah, so the full story is 12 feet.
Okay.
So it's 3.66 in the amendment bylaw.
So it says on page 7, no greater than 2.75 meters, which is 9 feet. On page 7, or sorry, 46 of your report, there's a color picture of the house up above it.
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to is the previous report where I referenced what West Vancouver's height limit is for an exempted story.
Okay,
Well,
so
what we're proposing is 1/3 of our current height, which is 3.66.
3.6 meters.
Correct.
So can you tell me what is 3.6 and
12 feet
12 feet? So basement height would be 12 feet. Could go down,
from floor to floor.
right, and it can go down into the ground to make that 12 feet?
So this only for the exempted portion is 12 feet. Anything that's completely buried, there's no height.
There's no
There's no
exemption.
height. There's no height cap.
Okay.
There's a full exemption. There's no height cap.
Okay. Do I have, Councillor Richard, do you? Yeah.
Just to clarify, this is the 3.66 meters is only on the additional floor on the exempted part when you're like building on a hillside.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Just on a hillside?
No, it doesn't apply. This is just
It does
primarily
all
where the problem would
throughout,
exist.
right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you can, on a slope, a fairly level lot, you can still go down. As deep
Yeah,
as you want, right?
yeah,
So,
you could.
yeah, and I guess one of my questions that I had as well was on, I guess it's the color one here, which is page 6 or 45, just about where average grade is and how that's calculated.
Yeah, so I mean, the average grade is
If you could use that photo there, just to kind of give me an understanding.
which
'cause
figure, sorry?
The bottom one.
3, figure 3?
I guess it's a colored one, yeah.
Yeah, so it's where the perimeter of the building meets the ground. And so if it's going up a slope, that perimeter goes up the slope with it. So
Right.
if it's on a fairly, even path, then the average grade becomes the halfway number of where the perimeter meets the ground.
Okay. That was all the questions. So you've confirmed that the basement, there is not a limit of an 8 foot, which is great. So any other questions before I call the question? See none? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to 12A Committee of the Whole meeting. The following recommendation was made. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this report is to follows the introduction of the development cost charges bylaw, which was shown to Council at Committee of the Whole. This report provides a brief summary of that introduction, presents the proposed 2026 DCC rate schedule for the village, and seeks Council's direction to prepare a draft DCC bylaw. So a quick background. At the Committee of the Whole, staff introduced the DCC framework and the case for updating the village's charges. And just in summary, that is that the DCCs are a one-time charge for new development authorised under Part 14, Division 19 of the LGA. And that allows us to recover the growth-related share of capital costs of infrastructure required to service new development. The village's existing DCC bylaw dates to 2005 and no longer reflects current construction costs, the village capital planning, or anticipated growth. Provincial best practice is to update the DCC program every 3 to 5 years. Rates are established through a defined methodology, projecting growth, identifying the growth-related capital projects and costs, assigning each a benefit allocation between existing and new development, applying a municipal assist factor, and dividing the recoverable costs across the expected growth units. Staff worked through the rate creation tool with Council, the Committee of the Whole, illustrating how the input assumptions produce the proposed rates. A comparison with the neighbouring municipalities was provided for context. The staff outlined the process ahead: preparation of draft bylaw, consultation, readings, approval by Inspector of Municipalities, and then adoption. This report is just to advance this to Council for the consideration.
Good.
So as we can see in the rate table below, these were developed based on the conversations that we had at the Committee of the Whole. So the residential rates are based on occupancy assumptions of 1 suite per single family house, adding an incremental 1.5 person per lot, consistent with the current small scale multi-use housing provision. This was a conversation that we had at the Committee of the Whole on whether we should assume that there was going to be more uptake or not of suites within the village. Staff could take this away as well and continue to look at past building permit applications to determine what the occupancy rate of suites have been in the village over the past 5 years. We currently haven't done that. Okay, next one. Sanitary sewer is not applicable because we don't have sanitary sewers within the village as a service. We currently only have it within AGE. And we don't anticipate building any sewers of our own, so therefore there are no projects. An important note was regarding protective services. Although recent provincial legislation added fire and police facilities as eligible DCC categories, Fire protection in the village is delivered through the Sassamat Fire Protection Service, a Metro Vancouver regional district function. And policing capital is not a cost borne directly by the village. The village therefore has no eligible protective services capital cost on which to base a charge. As noted above, the fire protection in the village is delivered through Sassamat Fire Protection Service, a Metro Vancouver regional district function, and the associated capital assets, including the fire hall, are regional assets funded through the service rather than by the village directly. For this reason, the growth-related capital costs of the anticipated fire hall upgrades cannot be recovered through the village's own development cost charges. It is nonetheless appropriate for the development to contribute its fair share towards these facilities. Staff therefore recommend that the village formally request that Metro Vancouver consider establishing a DCC for the Sassamat Fire Protection Service to recover the growth-related portion of the fire hall upgrades costs consistent with the newly eligible fire protection service category under the LGA, and any such charges would be developed, adopted, and administered by Metro Vancouver through its own bylaw and cost allocation process in consultation with the village of Anmore and Belcara as participating members of the service, and would apply in addition to the village's DCC rather than through them. So we also, following the publishment of this report, we've also received word back from the province to clarify this note, and I'll just read one particular note from within their email that was, and I quote, "Our interpretation of capital cost is that the capital asset be owned or controlled by the local government such that it is capitalized on the audited financial statements of the local government." So based on that coming back from the province, they kind of substantiated what we thought in the past, that because we don't actually own the asset, we're not allowed to collect a DCC. Again, it's important to note that we do have a mechanism to collect it, but Anmore itself cannot collect it directly based on legislation. Okay, land use categories and zoning. The rate schedule presents charges for a full range of land use categories, so the DCC framework is complete and internally consistent. Several of these categories do not currently permit or are contemplated under the village's zoning bylaw or OCP. Their inclusion in the schedule is for the calculation and information purposes only. It does not create, imply, or confer any development entitlement, zoning permissions, or right to develop these uses in the village until the zoning bylaw is amended to permit a given use. The corresponding DCC rate has no application, and the value set in the rates now is that should council of the future consider enabling any of these uses, a defensible charge would already be established, ensuring that any such development contributes fair share towards growth-related infrastructure. And then lastly, park acquisition charges. The proposed schedule does not include a park acquisition DCC. While park acquisition is an eligible category under the Local Government Act, a defensible parks DCC must be grounded in adopted parkland provision standard, typically expressed as an amount of parkland per capita or per dwelling, from which the quantity and cost of the land need to serve growth can be determined. The village does not currently have a policy establishing a park provision standard. In its absence, there is no defensible basis on which to determine the per capita land requirement or the associated acquisition cost, and the park's acquisition charge has therefore been excluded at this time. Should council wish to pursue parkland acquisition funding through DCC in the future, staff would first recommend adoption of the park acquisition policy standard, and would then allow a parks DCC to be calculated and incorporated into the bylaw amendment. And then finally, financial implications. The financial implication, obviously, there's none related to staff direct to the village directly. However, there would obviously be a cost association with managing the DCC work, and once adopted, the updated charges are expected to materially improve the village's ability to fund growth-related water, drainage, and road infrastructure from development rather than from general tax base. Lastly, next steps from staff. Recommendations would be to prepare the draft development cost charges bylaw, incorporating the proposed rate schedule and supporting background study, consult with the development community and other interested parties consistent with the provincial guidelines, request Metro Vancouver consider establishing a development cost charge for Sassamat Fire Protection Services to recover the growth-related cost of the fire hall upgrades, and bring the draft bylaw to council for consideration. Okay, I can read the resolution if you wish. Your worship.
Sure.
Okay, that staff be directed to bring the draft development cost charges bylaw forward to council for consideration, and that staff be directed to undertake consultation with the development community and other interested parties on the proposed development cost charges, and that staff be directed to contact Metro Vancouver in relation to consideration of the establishing a development cost charge bylaw for SASMAT fire protection services.
Good. Could I get someone to move that? Moved and second, open up for some discussion. Mr. Boyd, just for clarity, I just wanted, who did you talk to at the province regarding the Metro Vancouver's role with the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department, so I can follow up with them?
1 second.
Or Ms. Elrock, who was it?
I've got it.
Yeah.
It's Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs,
Okay.
the financial office. And
And do you have a person there?
the person that sent to us was Jenny Chang.
Could I get a copy of that, please?
I can circulate it to all of council.
Perfect, thanks. The reason I say that, Mr. Boyd, is that I was concerned about this because, again, there is such confusion when it comes to the fire department. And the real clarity of it is that the Metro Vancouver, simply we pay them a service to operate the fire department, and the assets are actually owned by each of the municipalities. And they've given a legal ruling saying that we should be collecting the DCCs and it should be part of this program. So I'd certainly like to flesh that out a little bit because I know it is somewhat confusing. So, but anyway, it's been, I'll follow up because Metro Vancouver had some interest there. Ms. Elrock.
Sorry, Mayor McEwen, I may have misunderstood. Did you say who gave a legal ruling regarding this?
No, that opinion that I distributed to staff and council was there from a legal aspect. From, I think it was Mr. Brant Smith or whatever, sent that out this morning. So anyway, open up any, Councillor Cryer.
Did we have why was it sent to Metro? Did we have a motion to send it to them? I
No,
thought
as
that
a
was
fire-
done after.
Yeah, as the fire trustee, I sent it there because I was unclear of it, why it was being separated here, so.
Okay.
Councillor Richardson.
Okay, trying to wrap my head around all that. So in summary, because it was a bit hard to hear, if the village owns the asset, we can charge, or plans to own the asset, we can charge DCCs. Is that correct?
So
Yeah, it has to
through
be
the
on a
chair,
financial,
sorry, through the chair, it must be owned or controlled by the local government such that it is capitalized on the audited financial statements of the local government, which in this case, it is not.
Okay, so just on that, because when I read the letter from Metro, I didn't hear a clear opinion that we could collect DCCs on them. I thought our plan was that we were going to ask Metro, since it's their asset, to collect DCCs like they do for water and sewer directly to the village. So Metro Vancouver would charge the DCCs. Is that correct?
Metro would collect DCCs for the water that is outside of the village, that comes to the village.
Yeah, but they do collect for those services. So Metro Vancouver, we haven't got an answer back from Metro Vancouver they can collect.
Through the chair, we have not formally reached out to Metro Vancouver. Mayor McEwen, I understand, reached out to Metro Vancouver, but we are waiting for direction from council. And as part of the process, we would be reaching out to Metro Vancouver. As we indicated, we've already reached out and got response back from the province. And additionally, we will be seeking legal advice through the village solicitor, who will be preparing the bylaw for us. And we have had some preliminary discussion with them on this, and we'll continue to explore options on how we may collect DCCs.
Okay, and then my last question is, like, if we were planning to build a water reservoir in 20 years to support our growth, we could collect DCCs on that project, could we not? Mr. Boyd?
Mr. Boyd's shaking his head as I think yes.
Yeah, correct. Provided
Okay.
it was being built in relation to the growth within the village.
Okay.
So typically that would be the answer, yes.
So therefore, if we got commitment from Metro Vancouver that once it was all paid off, they would transfer the fire hall to Anmore, then that would be the same thing. We're just going through some other path, are we not?
I suppose the answer would be, well, go on, sorry, Liam.
Sorry, to the chair, the assets that are already developed, we can't post a DCC after the fact. So the assets are currently held under Metro's financial statements. As such, that's why we would propose to go through Metro's DCC bylaw.
Was the question, Councillor Richardson, could we transfer the ownership of the fire hall to the village?
Yeah, Lena kind of answered it. It's like, the asset's already there, but we just get it transferred to the end, doesn't count, is what I heard. But, you know, I was, well, we could build it for 20 years and then maybe it would, but anyway, but, you know.
It is a bit of a convoluted mess because we, as trustees, we went through this in the fact if we were ever to separate, how do the assets get divided? And so it is it's not an easy ask whatsoever. So I've got Councillor Trowbridge.
Thank you. Yeah, my understanding of the motion that's in front of us, though, is that staff is going to explore every opportunity to recover DCCs in whatever route through whatever legal process. So I'm in favor of just moving this forward and letting staff do their job.
Yeah. Good. Any other questions or anything else? I had one, Mr. Boyd, regarding the park DCC. I read through the Parks Master Plan, and from page 1 on, it talks about us implementing a park DCC. And I know at Metro Vancouver, we've recently done that in the last year, and it was very, very well received because, again, as you're creating, and in this case, there seems to be possibly an incentive for more multifamily because of the costing of the DCCs being proposed, the green space that's going to be required in that. So is that something that could be added on to this DCC? Because it's referenced quite heavily in the fact, in the Parks Master Plan, which I guess was done sort of 2015, 2016.
For sure, I mean, the village have the right to acquire TCCs for parkland acquisition. Again, the policy just needs to be written, Mayor McEwen. So I wouldn't recommend attaching it to this TCC because it's going to take a little bit of time, consultation to get through that, unless it's council's will. But most certainly, you can write a TCC for parkland.
Yeah, and I also wanted to just add that, you know, Metro Vancouver this Friday, we're actually going to reduce DCCs that Metro Vancouver's instigated because of the fact of and it has to go to the Register of Municipalities at Victoria, and there seems to be this big push on reducing costs to be able to produce housing. So we're not sure whether this will get approved, but we'll certainly put it forward. But I'm looking forward to having some more discussion. It's a significant raise to what we're currently paying, which is currently about $10,700 per lot that's being created, and taking it up to $23,000. It's significant. And then when you throw on, you know, the Metro portion, TransLink, you know, we're at $32,000 for the creation of a lot, $33,042 for the creation of a lot, which is significant. So, good. Okay, no further questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to the mayor's report. I don't really have a lot. Please be cautious. The water restrictions went down to level 2. So you are allowed to water shrubs and hand watering, allowed to wash your car. Fire ban is in. I know that a new fire just opened up in the Fraser Valley tonight. It's a very, very precarious time right now. We need to get through the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, I think there's going to be some rain due on Saturday and Sunday. And I think that's about it. I'll move out councillors' reports. Councillor Richardson.
Okay, 3 things. One for the public, and I think Ms. Elger might cover this, is election dates for the information sessions.
Through the chair, is that for candidate information sessions? Yes, you stole my thunder.
Okay, so I'll let you,
I'll give.
Okay, go.
No, I'm happy to give you the dates.
No, just save it. I don't need to. The other thing was mentioned earlier, this was the last meeting for public input until after the election. So at public question period, say your piece or forever hold your more. On garbage days, it's interesting to me because the bears go around and tip garbage over. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it lets me see what people are throwing out. And I have to say, I'm a bit appalled on the recyclables and compostables that are in garbage bins. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but glass bottles, clear plastic, plastic films, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it drives me nuts. So I just want to say, it doesn't take a lot of time. Please put more care in your garbage and recyclables. And then the last thing is I bumped into Jay Sharp a few times at my office, which is the leftmost seat at Starbucks at 1:30 most days. And we've had chats with other residents about the fire halls. And I suggested to Mr. Sharp that he could do a town hall or something because he brings the temperature down of people who are quite upset. And he informed me that he cannot do that without the approval of the trustees. And really, this council has no say on the fire thing other than through the trustees. So I make my request to the Anmore trustees, could you request or give permission to Mr. Sharp to do a town hall on the fire halls? That would be greatly appreciated by the residents at large. Thank you.
I actually believe there's going to be an RFP coming out. There'll be actually a special meeting for the handing out of the RFP for the design and everything. So that would be a perfect opportunity to get people out to ask questions. So, okay, Chief Administrator's report.
Thank you. The election candidate sessions, and these are the sessions that are administered by our Chief Election Officer, Lori Darkis, where potential candidates can find out about the election process, about what being an elected official looks like and responsibilities related to that. So we are looking at holding 2 info sessions this time. All of this information will be up on the village website in the coming weeks as well, but the dates for the info sessions will be in the evening, August 27th and September 2nd right now. And so please check for that and other information and updates on the election page, which is on the Village of Anmore website, and we will be more targeted communication coming out on that. And then additionally, further to the recommendation this evening, watch for early September. We expect that we will be having an information session, firstly for the development community, but then secondly for the broader public on development cost charges and what exactly they are and how they're determined and projects and whatnot, just so that the general public understands the DCCs and the bylaw before it comes back to council, hopefully later in September. That's it for me.
Good. Thank you. I've got some general correspondence, a letter dated from the Chair of the Regional District of the Central Okanagan and Town of Lake Cowichan. Public input and question period. This is the last one. So you said it was, is it the last one? It is, yeah. So please name and address, please.
Is this working? Jurgen Ducht in 1815 A East Road. I'm just wondering if the municipality proper, I mean, the village is exempt from the water restrictions. I see, for example, Circle Host is out here and or something that's making the plants grow quite well. And I was just wondering if the village is exempt from water restrictions when we were obeying them.
Well, the water restrictions now are down back to level 2, so you are allowed to hand water shrubs and that, yeah.
But water is, the residents were restricted from using soaker hoses. I don't know how the vegetation out here grew out quite quickly and must have been fed by water. I'm just wondering if there's exemptions for the village and not for residents.
Just for clarity, are you talking about the ferns that came up in the dirt area in the front?
The ferns and also at the steps here.
I don't know about the steps, but those darn ferns, they come up no matter what you do. So in the front around, like on the East Sunnyside Road section, all the green that came up through the newly laid soil, I don't think that was watered at all.
Okay.
So
I was just curious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Mike, 2555 Sunnyside Road. I don't know if I'm allowed, how I'm gonna be able to ask these questions. Do I do it through you?
Yeah.
Because it's a contractor and it's also a member of the staff that I have these questions for.
Can you send me an email about it, or can you
I-
generalize what?
Okay, well.
We don't want anybody's name mentioned or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I'm
Just-
not. Well, May 5th, we had the council meeting. After the meeting, we talked about the drainage of the Spirit Park.
Okay.
After the meeting, I met with the the municipal contractor in charge of that. And we set up for a time, 2:00 the next day, to go and meet over there. I was there for more than half an hour, gave up because he never showed up. So May 6th, the next day, or that day, I phoned City Hall when I went in, and I asked the receptionist or whoever answered the phone, what do I do? Can I have his number? She said, no, I'll leave a posted note for him. I will get him to contact you and also email him. So I emailed him. That was on May 6th. June 23rd, I also left my phone number. June 23rd, I sent another email. This time I CC'd one of the staff. I'm not allowed to say which staff because we're not allowed to say names. That was June 23rd. I emailed the staff saying, hey, well, not the staff. I CC'd the staff and I emailed the contractor. And I said, we were supposed to meet. That was a month ago. I waited a month. How come we didn't meet? Here's my phone number. Can we please meet? Then today is the 21st of July. I still have not received any correspondence from the city staff and the contractor in charge, and they've already sent the tender out for that or awarded the tender. So what do I do?
If I can ask, if you can send me that string of emails and then I'll talk to Karen, Ms. Albert tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, because I'm frustrated that it's been 2 months. It's been a month for the city staff to get back to me, as well as the contractor, 2 months.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Any other questions before? Okay, motion to adjourn, moved, second, all those in favor? Carried unanimously, and thank you, everyone. Have a great summer. We'll see you in September.